Hello and welcome to another devblog video. Now, this second video is in fact our devblog intro video, in which I highlight a bit about what the vision for Outer Veil is. So, what genre is Outer Veil? Well, Outer Veil is going to be a massively multiplayer first-person role-playing game. So the main view would be first-person. We'll add third-person support later on down the road. The genre would deal more with the social interactions between players in an environment where what the player does affects someone somewhere and they have the freedom as a player to do what they want. So they might mug someone with a knife down back alleys, or be a police officer investigating crimes, or a corrupt military officer with a gambling addiction. If I could describe Outer Veil in a short sentence of what I visualize it to be, it would be like Game of Thrones, about 100 to 150 years in a dystopian future. So mankind has finally started exploring the galaxy with the use of faster-than-light warp travel, which for roleplay senses we are going to call a Veil Drive. Now the game has 9 static factions, so 2 main government factions of the currently expanding human race, so a police force and an army to keep their citizens in line, 4 mega corporations, which have absorbed most lesser corporations on Earth and are essentially nations unto themselves in all but name, who are out for profit, kind of like how the East India Trading Company was. And finally 3 clan factions, which are more conglomerates of individuals band together in different groups, but united under the same flag to serve a mutually beneficial purpose. So these would be your crime factions, or anarchists who dislike living in a dystopian capitalist society. Now, each faction has within it 9 ranks, which we'll just call ranks 1 to 9, with 1 being the lowest and 9 being the highest. Rank 9 is essentially the faction leader who leads the faction and has full control over what policies they take, whether to make peace, go to war, and the ranks underneath have varying degrees of power. So, for the most part, elections are held to be in control of the faction, players put themselves forwards to be the leader, and whoever wins by the most votes gets promoted up. Now, here's the interesting bit, because players get promoted up by the people on top of them. So whoever gets elected leader will promote up people who have decent skills to higher level ranks, so 6 to 8, and they help shape the layout of the faction. Now, there will be tools given to the higher ranks to use on lower ranks. Aside from promotions and demotions, they might be able to say, find wages or take income from a player when they sell an item on a market, or remove a specific benefit that being in their faction offers. So in order to keep the ranks in line, stop them attacking each other, their allies, etc. So it kind of builds itself up as a pyramid. Now here's where the Game of Thrones analogy comes in, because suddenly, to advance higher in the game, it's not a matter of what uber elite equipment you have, or gaining some experience point value, but more your social ability. So, say being able to organize people effectively in combat to focus fire, or perhaps get a group of people together to create items to sell for mutual profit, or just who you know. However, of course, that doesn't mean you have to be honourable. You could steal profits from sales for yourself, or create backroom alliances with other people to aid them in combat in certain situations, in return for support later on. And I'm not going to go into examples of how that might play out right now, but I will once more features are in the game. I'm sure your imagination can see how people would backstab each other or suck up to higher ranks to get more power. So this is just a brief. So that is just a very brief overview of the core gameplay Outer Veil will offer. Now let's get to the devblog intro itself. So I created this basically as an example and a test environment. For a basic player-owned apartment, what a basic player-owned apartment would be in Outer Veil, taking some heavy influence from elsewhere. It helped with getting a pipeline down of what to do, so creating the base layout, adding textures over the walls, putting in smaller details, and and defining sections. And really, I just set it up so that the textures weren't stretched out as the source they came from. And looking at the images in Photoshop, they are rather high quality textures. They're just a bit too small in resolution, being at most 512 by 512 pixels. So there is some inconsistencies with quality, like here next to this windowsill. However, I went a step further. and ran all of these textures through a wonderful program called Crazy Bump, and generated myself lots of normal maps, ambient occlusions, and speculars. And this really helped to add some detail in the form of how light interacts with them, except for here where it looks like the surface of the moon. Now, you might not be able to tell the difference immediately with some of the textures, but some here, like the wood grain, for example, and the carpet, really do stand out in terms of having a higher quality. And really this is just to show what is possible with the Unreal Engine. But I also wanted some experience with setting up values for materials, the amount of roughness and shine, etc. I also went another step closer, and to get a quick feel for the scale and space inside the apartment without any time invested into final art, I've used the starter pack for the Unreal Engine just to whitebox the rough layout. And I really like the way that this itself has turned out. And also for legal reasons, I won't be using the previous textures. They were just for practice. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please visit us on the forums listed in the video description, where there will be some before and after screenshots showing the effects of the normal maps and the lighting on the previous textures. Ciao!